My name is Nassime Saabs.
This is Mount Hermon. This is the exact location where the sons of God, the fallen angels, came to earth for the first time. They chose the daughters of men and began their campaign of genetic contamination upon the earth at this location. Hermon in the Hebrew is Sherman, which comes from the Hebrew in the word sharam, meaning by destruction, make accursed, consecrate, and destroy. And by the way, the word consecrate, we're going to see that again in the book of Enoch later on. So as we look at this location, this high place of 9,000 feet with a flat level top, this location of the first contact between fallen angels and humans, first contact, of course, being since the fall of Adam and Eve at the Garden of Eden. We can now see with the Garden of Eden. We can now in the building of structures to reach unto heaven. This became temples of worship to the gods. One of the earliest forms of this is located in Iraq during the 5,500 years to the time of the ancient Sumerians in the cradle of civilization. Mount Hermon and the replicas. They became more elaborate as time went on. They started including staircases, like the temples that were found in in Iraq. That's just south of Babylon, or south of Baghdad, by the way. Also in the cradle of civilization in the Mesopotamia Valley. Here's another pyramid found in Iraq. With the exception of smooth-faced pyramids, such as the ones found in Giza that we saw, most pyramids throughout the world were built with a flat top, and they had steps leading to that flat top. These are referred to as step ziggurats. Some of these step ziggurats had waiting rooms built on the flat top. And we'll look at a few of these in a minute. But after the flood, we read in Genesis chapter 11 that the people wanted to build a structure that would reach unto heaven. Now God was again dismayed at this because this reaching unto heaven was in fact a concept. Once again, they weren't talking about the kingdom of heaven. They were talking about second heaven, the universe, okay? And remember, we read in Genesis chapter 6, there were giants in those days, the flood, before the flood, and also after that, after the flood. But this time, God slowed down this external intervention by destroying the Tower of Babel, which is one of the first earlier built step ziggurats, and he confounded their language of the people from one single language to many forms of language, and then he dispersed them all over the earth. And yet the people retained the knowledge of pyramid building, and this continued in isolated regions of the earth far from the original center of civilization, which was at that time Mesopotamia or the Middle East. But after the flood, genetic contamination had only occurred on a smaller scale and isolated only to scattered civilizations throughout the world, because God obviously did not find it necessary to destroy the earth again with a second flood. As the people were dispersed and migrated throughout the world, pyramids continued to be built in Mexico, Central America, and South America, as well as China, India, and Europe. This is the Sun Pyramid in Mexico. I'm going to share something with you. The Lord gives me pieces of information once in a while, and that's through Spirit. Okay, and I'm going to tell you something. Is that this is again is a replica of Mount Hermon. Okay, high top mountain. Look in this region. You see this lady here, right here. She's about let's say she's 6 feet. Based on her heights, this platform right here is 14 feet tall. Each stair, there's 12 stairs. Each of those stairs are 14-inch stairs. That's not built on a normal human step. But this is what the Lord showed me. He said, Mark, this structure was not built so humans could walk to the top. This structure was built so something else came down and walked down. This is the podium where they presented themselves to the people. This was the landing pad, and they walked down to present themselves. This is the red carpet for the fallen angels. They went to elaborate lengths to build this. This is a depiction in Mexico of what one of the cities looked like. In fact, a lot of the cities are in ruins, okay, and they're also overrun by jungles, by the way. But they were very elaborate cities back then in ancient Mexico. In fact, halfway around the world, Mexico, Central America, was a second land of Canaan. The fallen angel influence was very strong. When Jesus was walking on the earth in the Middle East, in Israel, at the same time, this was going on halfway around the world. In the Mayan culture, civilization, these pyramids had special purposes. Some pyramids were used for God worship, to make the God come down from the sky. In fact, in the Mayans, a young maiden was chosen from the village and led up the staircase to one of the top of the step ziggurats, where a special room was waiting, okay, for the god, small g, to take her as his, and demigods were produced from this unholy union. This is spoken about plainly in Mayan historical artifacts, as well as many other ancient cultures throughout the entire world. This is ingrained in their cultures. Other step ziggurat pyramids were used for human sacrifice for their gods. As mentioned previously, Satan and the fallen angels encouraged sacrifice offerings and escalated it to a whole new level. Other ancient temples of the world are in a circular formation. This one's well known as the Temple of Stonehenge, located in Salisbury, England. This temple is estimated to have been built about 2500 BC, although the actual builders are not known. At this location, the ancient Druid priests would call on the gods from the heavens to come down to this temple. This is why this temple is aligned with the stars and the movements of the sun. It's also a site where human sacrifice took place in the past. This is a depiction of what the actual altar looks like. The black stones are the ones that are still erect, and the white stones are the ones that are missing or fallen down. Okay, but this temple had an altar in the center of it. In fact, all on the outside of Stonehenge, on the outside perimeter, they found Bronze Age barrels, which are human graves. Okay, there are hundreds and hundreds of graves that are scattered outside the perimeter of Stonehenge. People were sacrificed at the altar, and they were buried on the outskirts. Here's another example of a circular temple at Easter Island off the coast of South America. These giant humanoid-looking statues are facing in a circle out to the ocean on this island. Here's another circular temple that's located in Israel called the Rujam Hiri, also known as the Gilga Raphaim, referring to the Temple of the Giants. It's 155 meters in diameter, 1.5 times the football field. It's located 10 miles from the town of Ashtoreth. Ashtoreth was one of the false gods worshipped by the land of Canaan back in the ancient times of Israel. This has been dated back to 3000 BC. It sits on a raised platform, again on a high place. The temple is only visible from the sky above. The more you research ancient cultures, their worship and belief systems, their temples, and what they built all over the world, you will find common threads that bind them all together. They all were preoccupied with the heavens above, and they were all preoccupied with the gods that they said came down from the heavens above. In fact, here's an example of God's word that clearly demonstrates that it is His will that these altars, these places of false worship, are to be destroyed. 2 Chronicles 14:2-3. And Asa did that which was good and right in the eyes of the Lord and his God, for he took away the altars of the strange gods, the high places, and break down the images and cut down the groves. That pyramid of the sun, by the way, you know they went to elaborate lengths to build that. You know why they did that? Because they didn't want it to be destroyed. They wanted it to remain intact. That's why they went through all that bother.